The sequel trilogy has really emphasized the concept of the balance in the Force.
Breathe. Reach out with your feelings. What do you see?
The island. Life. Death and decay that feeds new life. Warmth. Cold. Peace. Violence.
And between it all,
Balance. And energy. A force.
And after giving it some thought, this theme has really been a part of the Star Wars mythos since the beginning. Whether fans accept it or not, Lucasfilm is truly honoring George Lucas's work. In the Clone Wars series, which George Lucas was directly involved in the Mortis story arc, we take a very deep look into the functionality of the Force, and it revolved around the maintaining of the balance. The Father was essential in the peace of the galaxy.
A family in balance, the light and the dark, day with night, destruction replaced by creation.
Without him, his children would, as he said, destroy the very fabric of the universe. Another area we can look at, even though it is considered legends, is the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise. His study into the Force was so advanced that he and Sidious were capable of accomplishing meditative rituals which shifted the Force to be in favor of the dark side, which in turn caused the Force to retaliate and create Anakin Skywalker, to bring balance back to the Force.
Darth Plagueis was a dark lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create life.
What is the Force?
The Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together.
The Jedi say it is created by life, but I say the Force creates life. It is simple deduction, an obvious conclusion when supported by structural experimentation. Yet consider this: the galaxy's leading scientific minds are largely ignorant of the Force, and the galaxy's most skilled Force users reject science. The latter are caught up in romantic mysticism, convinced they have been called by a higher power. The former has no excuse.
I don't believe it.
That is why you fail.
The words, the speaker's tone, his mental state. If a talisman's power resides inside the gem, what will happen if a fragment is shaved off, then another? Does the energy dissipate when the sufficient mass is lost? Is the ratio consistent for similar gems and similar talismans? The Sith of old never asked these questions, for tradition and obedience extinguish their spark of curiosity, and these questions are much more than idle speculation. My science will remove everything superfluous. In this way, the true nature of the fundamental elements that the Jedi and Sith wield so casually will be revealed. So it must be that I am the first. I will change it all. Even during the centuries under the rule of two, playing dress up in frightening costumes and fostering for our followers, I will burn away the colorful wrappings and study the skeletal structure that reveals the architecture of reality. This comes from The Science of Creating Life, the Book of the Sith. A mystic obsessed with eternal life, Plagueis is believed to have possessed knowledge that could sustain those who were dying. and perhaps had even gained the ability to use midichlorians to draw new life directly from the wellspring of the Force. This coming from the Star Wars The New Essential chronology. On the same day, they had allowed Venomous to die. Then, by manipulating the Bith's midichlorians, which should have been inert and unresponsive, Plagueis had resurrected him. The enormity of the event had stunned Sidious into silence and overwhelmed and addled 11-4D's processors. But Plagueis had carried on without assistance, again and again, allowing Venomous to die and be returned to life, until the Bith's organs had given out and Plagueis had finally granted him everlasting death. This coming from the Darth Plagueis novel. Only the Sith understood that sentient life was on the verge of a transformative leap, that through the manipulation of midichlorians, or the overthrow of the forceful group that supervised them, the divide between organic life and the Force could be bridged, and death could be erased from the continuum. This coming from Darth Plagueis' novel. The secrets of immortality are not meant for common beings. If all knew these truths, it would destabilize the structure of civilization. I do not wish to live in a galaxy where any fool can perpetuate his ignorance for eternity. Life is not mystical. Like Tabana gas or Nova crystals, life is a resource to be exploited. It is unique in that those who possess it find it priceless. Yet, in aggregate, it is so common that it is functionally worthless. Billions of beings come into existence every day, and billions more die. We should preserve only those who advance our goals, or whose work is complementary to our own. Under my grand plan, this list will include apprentices, researchers, and credit-worshipping corporate executives. This coming from The Science of the Creating of Life, the Book of the Sith. The question of whether he and Sidious had discovered something new or rediscovered something ancient was beside the point. All that mattered was that, almost a decade earlier, they had succeeded in willing the Force to shift and tip irrevocably to the dark side. Not a mere paradigm shift, but a tangible alteration that could be felt by anyone strong in the Force, and whether or not trained in the Sith or Jedi arts. The shift had been the outcome of months of intense meditation, during which Plagueis and Sidious had sought to challenge the Force for sovereignty and suffuse the galaxy with the power of the dark side. Brazen and shameless, and at their own mortal peril, they had waged Etheric war, anticipating that their own midichlorians, the Force's proxy army, might marshal to boil their blood or stop the beating of their hearts. Risen out of themselves, discorporate, as a single entity, they had brought the power of their will to bear, asserting their sovereignty over the Force. No counterforce had arisen against them. In what amounted to a state of rapture, they knew that the Force had yielded, as if some deity had been tipped from its throne. On the fulcrum, they had fashioned, the light side had dipped, and the dark side had ascended. And this coming from the Darth Plagueis novel. In response to the cosmic shift to the dark side, and the unnatural powers of Plagueis achieved in the wake of it, the Force conceives the prophesied chosen one to oppose them, a being of pure force, destined to destroy the Sith and restore balance. Ignoring the reactions of the apprehensive residents and wary security personnel, Plagueis hastened along a plush corridor in 500 Republica toward Palpatine's suite of crimson runes. He had planned to be at the Senate building to hear Amidala's call for a vote of no confidence in Valorum, which would strike the first death nail for the Republic. At that last moment, however, Palpatine had contacted him to recount a conversation he had with Dooku. The fact that Qui-Gon Jinn had identified Maul as a Sith was to be expected, but Dooku's news about a human boy at the center of a vergence of the Force had come as a shock. More, Qui-Gon saw the boy as a Jedi's prophesied chosen one. He had to see this Anakin Skywalker for himself, had to sense him for himself. He had to know if the Force had struck back again 9 years earlier by conceiving a human being to restore balance to the galaxy. This coming from the Darth Plagueis novel.
You refer to the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force. You believe it's this boy?
I don't presume to.
But you do. Revealed your opinion is.
I request the boy be tested, Master.
Oh. Trained as a Jedi, you request for him,
Finding him was the will of the Force. I have no doubt of that.
So even in Legends, the theme of the Force and balance is a very common and even main element in storytelling in Star Wars. It's just continued in canon. It also respects and continues the perception of the and understanding of the Force that George Lucas taught. The Force has a will, and it will always strive to maintain balance for the benefit of all life.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Be sure to tell us what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And stay tuned for more content, and may the Force be with you.